Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit TRE.radio.
Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
It is Tuesday, the 19th of March. Welcome to Viewpoint Talk Radio, Europe's current affairs programme, with invited guests where we discuss the issues of the day. With you for the next 2 hours, we'll be looking at anything that crosses your radar, basically, in terms of things you want to get your viewpoint across. We'll be looking at the situation in the UK. Racism. Is it after the situation of the past couple of days with donors for the Conservative Party, etc., the row on racism, the kickback? What are your views on that? Also, elections. Are we heading to a May election? Are we heading to a November election? Any thoughts about what's happening across the pond? And anything else that is crossing your radar? We might even touch on photo shopping once again and royals and body doubles, etc. If you want to get involved with this morning's show, these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
So let's look at morning front pages before we kick off. The Sun is splashing on photos of the Princess of Wales spotted on a shopping trip after weeks of intense speculation about her well-being. That's also the main story for the Daily Mail. They call it the image the world has been waiting to see. Daily Express is leading with the latest progress with the Rwanda bill as the Prime Minister confirms his commitment to the deportations timeline. Similarly, the Times says Sunak risks losing key votes as his policy faces further opposition. The Telegraph's front page has a vow from Labour. They'll enable economic growth like that seen under Margaret Thatcher. The Daily Mirror also features the view from the opposition with a pledge from Sir Keir Starmer that if elected, he won't let voters down. The Eye leads with a scandal they say could be bigger than PPI, as energy firms could be forced to pay out billions. The Metro reports on a popular celebrity diet regime that studies say doubles the risk of dying from heart disease. The Financial Times leads with Deloitte's biggest shake-up in a decade as the company launches an overhaul of global operations. And the Daily Star headlines, this time next year, we'll be billionaires. As divers race to find £13 billion worth of gold at the bottom of the Caribbean Sea. So those headlines ago. Again, the Metro. Celebrity, 16 16:8 fast. No, that's not what it is. But anyway, 16 doubles the risk of dying. Meanwhile, the Independent exposed secret NHS report that shames ambulance service. Meanwhile, the FT, Deloitte launches biggest shake-up in the decade as market slowdown looms, and also Biden push, Netanyahu call as tension rises. The Sun, great to see you again, Kate. Royal World exclusive first picture. The Eye energy customers set for payout worth billions in scandal that's bigger than PPI. The Daily Star, this time next year we'll be billionaires, race to snaffle £13 billion of gold lying on the bottom of the Caribbean Sea for 300 years. Daily Telegraph, Reeves, Britain faces 1979 moment. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says the economic challenges awaiting the next government will be similar to those faced by Margaret Thatcher in 1979. And also a second royal portrait was manipulated. A photograph of the late Queen with her grandchildren. Meanwhile, Daily Express, Prime Minister confirms he's still committed deportations timeline, they say that he's selected 200 migrants. Migrants chosen for first flight to Rwanda in spring. Meanwhile, the Daily Mail got that picture again, which has got the sun across the front of it, but the image the world has been waiting to see. Smiling Kate out walking with William. And also, Harry and Meghan are downgraded by Palace. Don't tell me they didn't know what they were doing when they did that. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer, I will not let you down. That is Labour Lee's message to Mirror readers. Sunak risks losing key votes on Rwanda bill, and the photograph of Barack Obama on the front of the Times. He's made a visit to Downing Street yesterday, and those are your front pages. If you want to get involved with today's show, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And thank you for Paul, who's come in quickly on the great debates. Of course, it is gripping the nation by saying, sorted, Kate Middleton was abducted by aliens. Now we can move on. Morning, Alf. How are you doing this morning? Yes, indeed. Join in the studio.
I've never believed in Kate Middleton, but I do believe in the aliens.
Yes.
Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Now, should we just, for goodness sake.
I have a shout out.
You have a shout out, do you?
Yeah. One of the guys who used to be on the panel of Viewpoint really for many times.
Yeah.
Recently stopped writing his column in one of the local giveaway papers. And last week he's back. So welcome back, Mike Sanker.
Oh, yeah, he's back with a Euro Weekly, is he?
Yes, he's back. He said he's not going to do it every week, but he's going to go back to his grumpy old man column.
International Man of Misery. He'll be joining me. I think he's joining me this weekend. He's joining me on Friday.
Right.
So we'll have some more.
I'll give him my best.
I will give him my best as well.
Mike's one of the good guys.
And also, if we are doing shout-outs, good morning to Deck. Good morning, Declan. Great for stopping me in the street the other day and saying, last time that Alf was on, it got so impassioned that I was ready to get my boxing gloves on and come down to the car park and sort everybody out. Good morning, Deck. Good to have you with us, mate.
Yeah.
So,
the one thing that I've never ever have I got involved in a physical contest about politics ever.
You're not a John Prescott then?
Well,
Two jabs.
Don't talk religion, don't talk football, don't talk politics, because
So that's the Rangers and Celtic match out then?
Absolutely. Well, in my case, it's the North Bank at West Ham. I just find it incredible that people can get actually that wound up. Having a difference of opinion is having a difference of opinion, and that's the top and bottom of an argument. Viewpoint is about people's views. The fact that people don't like some of my views is, to be honest, is irrelevant to me. And for the most part, you'll know, I spent a lot of my years knocking on people's doors, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, you're trying to persuade them to vote Labour." And I was trained properly trained as a proper party organiser. The last thing you do is knock on someone's door and try to persuade them to change their mind. You will be there all day, and the chances are they won't change their mind. So the idea is you go out and you find your support. People will willingly tell you, and they're the best ones that you can have. And what we did, certainly from 97, which was a big learning exercise from American politics, certainly telephone canvassing, but it was about what do you do when you find a Tory? Well, ignore them.
What do you do when you...
Well, when you find someone who says, I'm voting Tory...
Them,
Why?
It's over there in the far grouse,
Well, worse still, it's the ones... I mean, we used to keep really top-class records. And we used to go to the electoral registration office in wherever it's Shaftesbury House or wherever they keep all your public records. And we used to get what's called the marked register. So we knew who had voted. We didn't know which way, But everybody who goes to vote is recorded. When you go into the polling station, they tick your name off. That goes into an official register, and you can buy the register, or these days I think you might even be able to get it online. So you go in there and you find out, and the worst people, you knock at the door and you look at their history of voting, and they haven't voted for the last 6 elections, and you knock at the door and you say, so have you considered voting, and who are you going to vote for? And they go, oh yeah, I always vote, and I vote, whatever it is, whatever party they say. And you just look at them and go, you haven't voted in, forever.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me fibs? So, rather than wasting somebody's 5 minutes of having that conversation, don't send them to the door. If those people are going to vote, it's a bonus vote for whoever. But you're never going to persuade them to vote for you when they don't vote. So a roundabout, and it's all, you have to take these things with, depends where you are, but between 10 and 15% of the population never vote.
Right.
So why would you waste your time knocking on? So you can save your feet for 10% of the population and don't go near them. And then there'll be the ones who say, I'm Tory. Well, you just cross them off. We never gave them a leaflet. We never delivered a newspaper. We never knocked on their door. We never phoned them. We never did. Why would you bother? Because I was trained, and I come from East London, the People's Republic. Occasionally, one of the daft Tories would come round and knock on the doors and try to... This is in a constituency that was like 75% Labour. Newham, by the way, if people aren't aware of where I come from. And you say, I would keep them people on the door for 15, 20 minutes. I mean, they didn't have a clue. And you go, well, so everybody say, well, why are you wasting it? I said, I'm not wasting my time, because that person has spent 15 minutes, 20 minutes talking to me, which means he hasn't knocked on another 20 doors trying to convince somebody else to vote against my party. It's part of the law. So when you see these people in the streets, understand that, especially these days, everybody's fully trained. When you get a phone call from a political party, usually it's because they've got no idea what your voting intention has ever been. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, we knew. Well, I'm proud of what we did. In 1997, we had accurate polling statistical evidence for 87% of the constituency. That includes the non-voters and things like that. And there's always a lump of people you never ever seem to get to anyway. What they do, I don't know, but you never get to them. So election stuff in the UK is a sophisticated, very sophisticated system. It's not about, you see them on the television, you see... That's where you try to influence people in our policies are better than their policies and this and that. At the moment, as putting a Labour Party organiser's head on, I would imagine the most difficult thing that the local constituencies have got is that you can get a fag paper between what the Tories are saying and doing and what Labour are saying and doing, because there is no... they're trying to create a gap, but whatever gap they try to create will be a false gap. So that's why Sunak is struggling in the polls. He's doing all these things that are supposedly... The day that he goes on the television and says the first flight to Rwanda is leaving tomorrow, and it leaves, the Tories will go up in the polls by 10%. That's a given. Because everybody's saying it ain't going to happen, it's not going to... Nobody will question. 250 people, maybe, if they're lucky, will be on that plane out of how many thousands of people were seeking asylum in the UK? 40,000.
The thing is, though, this wasn't even Sunak's policy. This is one he's inherited from one of the.
Yeah, but he would have been part of the internal Tory think tanks. None of the politicians would have come up with this idea. This is where you sit your think tanks down. This is where you get your highly intelligent. I know it sounds a bit weird, but the guy who used to work alongside Boris Johnson had more influence with the Tory party than Boris Johnson. Cummings, yeah. Because that's what you employ them for. You employ them for their brains. The chances of that guy ever going onto a door and asking someone if they're going to vote Tory is remote. It's never going to happen because they're not that sort of person. But you collect together your brains. I tell you, the person I met who fascinated me. Well, there was two people actually. Peter Mandelson's brain. You'd be involved in a conversation, and I am fortunate. I would be in a room with Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, and a few others. I'm not saying on my own, but there would be a group of party organisers just chewing the cuff. Is it chewing the cuff? Yeah,
chewing the crud.
Yeah, whatever.
Cud, not crud. Sorry,
yeah.
Cud. That's something entirely different. Excuse me, and apologies to listeners.
We'd be sitting there having a chat, and all of a sudden Mandelson would come out with this. And you go, where did that come from? What's all that about? And also, what's his name, who's still heavily involved, was Blair's communications guy. Whatever his name is, the guy who...
Alistair Campbell. I mean, so they're not people who you would put on the television, not necessarily people you would put on the television to convince people, especially not Mandelson. Put a set of fangs in, and that was as close as he got to being popular with the people. But the brains and the way they think and the left side that they come from, absolutely stupendous, unbelievable, the things that they used to come up with, especially as we were rolling along to that landslide thing. And if nobody listened to or nobody watched the news stuff on Rachel Reeves the other day talking to the economic people, if you don't hear what's being said, then you'll never understand. In 1979, when the unions were all up in arms against the Labour government, Callaghan wasn't popular. This is. I mean, who can forget? This is the part of the winter discontent on the Saatchi advert with the dead laying unburied and parts of it. I remember it.
Some of that it was a bit further on than that, but yeah, it was called the beginning of Thatcher, and nobody saw her coming. Seriously, nobody was looking for a woman Tory leader.
So what does Reeves mean when she says we're going to have a 1979 moment then?
Because what Thatcher walked into office with is effectively, in order to try to stay in power. Remember, we had Wilson, for whatever reason, and there's lots of, including medical stuff that was said, why Wilson stepped aside and Callaghan took over. But effectively, the claim was that Labour had emptied the coffers. There was no money left in the economy for, so when Thatcher comes in, she's got no money to invest in anything. Right. And what Hunt has just done, right, so Labour come up with a plan to cream in, I don't know, they talk in numbers I don't even understand, £2 billion is going to come out of the economy, and we're going to put it into, we're going to take it off the non-dom status people and whatever, and we're going to invest it in education or the health service or whatever they've decided. And Hunt comes along and says, we're going to, having spent 10 years telling the Labour Party they were wrong about non-dom tax, they then decide to get rid of the non-dom tax. So they've nicked, effectively, £2 billion worth of whatever Rachel Reeves had in front of her, and now they've got to find something to replace it. There is no money. Everybody knows there is no money.
Going back to Theresa May's money tree, and then she finds whatever it was, 11 billion for the DUP.
Yeah, but that was fibbing. And,
there is money if you've got a donor like
that's millions. That's millions. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about £10 billion just to pay the civil service payroll. We're talking mega bucks. So she's got to find something to do. So she's just made a speech, and she's gone back to the Thatcher era and said, effectively, we've got no money. How do we turn things round? And it's called, well, we don't invest, but we put all of our efforts into changing the economic i.e. we grow. The first thing you do in that case is you go and talk to your businesses, because they they will invest in things that are good for them. They won't invest in the health service because it's not good for them, unless they're providing PPE or, chemicals or whatever. So businesses will invest in, like wind farms. Go to any engineering company in the UK. If you want to go and get your windmill made in China or Germany or wherever, fine. But the British economy needs those made in the UK. You create employment. When you create employment, you get people get paid. When people get paid, they spend their money. You'll get taxed.
Steady there, Ralph. Let me just
talking too long.
Do you want to get some water on that? I tell you what, I'm going to go to the first commercial break, and we'll come back after this.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
Yes, indeedy. Always good to hear from you. Off you go. 952 78 4000. Somebody's coming up soon. Well, whatever. Really.
Somebody. The guy hasn't rung in to tell me I'm talking.
The thing is, I get these messages in from people, and there isn't there when I get accused of having boring old white people on. Yep. Unfortunately, we don't. Much as I'd love to have a diverse and whatever thing, it's quite. As you know, it's not that. We don't have a huge pool of people to pick from. If you want to come on to Viewpoint, rather than just sending me things saying, "I think you need to try and find some interesting, intelligent guests on your show." Well, hey, love to have you on. Walk it like you talk it.
Or
why don't you?
Or even ring in.
But no, please, just feel free to WhatsApp and off you go. And don't let it slam you in the WhatsApp on the way back out again. I'm in that sort of mood today, people. 952 78 4000 is the phone number. Alf.
You ask as well about whether we're heading for a May or October or even a January.
Now, this is the thing, yeah. Well, they can't do January, can they?
Yes, they can. They can go right up to...
Christmas
February, February the 14th.
Go wrong?
Hang on. Christmas with Johnson.
Christmas with Johnson?
Yeah, the election was 4 weeks before Christmas.
True, yeah.
3 weeks before Christmas, and everybody said, it's Christmas, everybody be out shopping. Nobody had any money to go out shopping, but there you go. So, I just think they've got themselves into a position now that Sunak needs as long as it can possibly go in order for the hope that the economy will change a bit. And it's true. I mean, everybody can predict it, including the finance people and Bank of England and everybody. Inflation will go down. Other financial things will happen.
Yeah.
Which means the longer it goes, the better it looks for the economy. The Tories will say, "We told you so."
The thing is, yeah. I'll just talk for myself for the next hour and a half. That'll get them going. Sit and stand on my soapbox and sing the international.
So anyway, the longer it goes.
So this is. I mean, if you are a campaign manager now for the Conservative Party, what on earth do you do? Sunak's got an 18-point. Last time we looked, Sunak's gone down from 20 to 18 points. Even the lettuce was more popular. So therefore, is it a case of you might as well hang on until the bitter end and just call it late? You can't call one in November because of what's happening across the pond. Because you'd be, could they really go and throw a UK election at the same time as a US election? Don't think so. So
it's not about the election bill at the same time. It's they're fixed, aren't they? So we know that the US election is.
Oh, you mean
November.
the dates are fixed? You see, why don't we do that in the UK? Why don't we have a 4 term? You have your 4 terms.
There is. It's by law.
No, but
they can only change it through Parliament. But they never stick to it, do they? So they still put a clause in that says you can change it. So they change it. which is what we said would happen.
Yeah, so here we are.
Fixed term office.
Fixed term office. But
so we know that the election in the US will be in November. They have, I think I said this last week, they have about a 6-week run-up to their elections, official run-up, which means that whatever publicity there's going for a British election will get wiped out, which is why they're not going to do it in November, and maybe even December.
Well, they wouldn't possibly do one in December because of the people won't turn out because they've got too much going on for Christmas.
Yeah.
You're not going to throw an election campaign in the right, with a John Lewis advert going in the background, and everybody worrying about the cost of living, etc., etc.
Well,
because
I hate to say it, but Boris Johnson did and got a landslide. So that was 4 weeks before Christmas.
And again, look who he was facing in that case. I mean, he was facing Corbyn. So therefore, you could argue there was no,
Labour were facing a cliff.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah.
The Tories didn't have to do it; they just had to turn up.
And exactly, and now you can argue that the situation at the moment means that it's pretty much reverse. It's completely reversed there.
It is. I was looking at it because there's lots of stuff that goes on with elections that a lot of people don't pay attention to. So one of the things that's happening for this general election is there's boundary changes. And everybody goes, yeah, but that don't mean anything. And it's called, well, it does mean something. It means something to where you live and what effect it has on things. Because in the main, historically, national boundary changes has always suited the Tories. They end up with more seats and all sorts of things because what you do is you drain the people out of the cities and they go to the countryside, and they're not Labour City people. They're escaping from the city because they want, I don't know, somehow or other they make themselves better. So just go and have a look at Whiteflight.
I was wondering how long it was going to take before you said Whiteflight. As soon as you say move out the cities.
That's because I'm a Londoner and I understood and I saw what happened and I see what happens every day. Yeah, white folk got up and left because of all these Asians who came in.
You mean you were throwing open our arms for migration this time round? That's what you mean to say? Yeah,
I suppose so.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
That's a weird way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yes, and so what you get is, I'll give you the best example. When Margaret Beckett first became, I've even forgotten what her first name was. It Margaret Lucas. When she first became an MP, she was MP for one of the Lincoln seats, and they were doing boundary changes. And the reason they made it good was, so there was Lincoln City was a constituency, and then there was Lincolnshire, I think, was two more constituencies. When they did the boundary changes, they decided, the Boundary Commission, for whatever reason, they split the city in half and put half the city with the country on one side and half the city with the country on the other side, which effectively meant that Labour lost their seat because you're splitting the Labour vote, which was the city, and you chuck it out to the fields where the cows get a bigger vote and a bigger say. It's one of those electoral weird things that happens, and something similar is going to happen this time as well. The weirdness of it is that, I don't know, what do they currently have? If there was a 5% swing, I think, if there was a 5% swing to Labour at the next general election based on the old constituencies, the Tories would win something like a 29 or 30 seat majority. With the boundary changes, with exactly the same swing, they would get 50 seats. So already the Tories are getting more seats from the boundary changes based on, set things like 5% swings and stuff like that. Now at the moment we're looking at double digit 20% swing against the Tories, so it really doesn't matter what they do, they're wiped out. And then you go, one, I don't think that's going to happen, and two, what are the consequences? The other thing that nobody's taken into account is that everybody assumed, because nobody's done any proper research on, well, not that they've published publicly, when they could talk about the Red Wall seats, they were called the Red Wall seats because they were all the Labour-held seats that went across from the northeast to the northwest. It was industrial land. It wasn't the Midlands. It was above the Midlands or just above the Midlands, going up to the Scottish borders. Effectively, that was the Red Wall. So you had all those, and all of a sudden, they all voted Tory. One, you had the Corbyn stuff that went with it. Two, you had the racist immigration stuff. Three, you had whatever people think of it. I'm not sure how popular Johnson was in those seats, but it's like the message on the side of the bus. We always come back to it. People will believe what they want to believe. They don't necessarily believe the truth or a lie. They just believe what they want to believe. So Johnson did enough to sway all that. Well, it's that bad now. The Tories are talking about using Johnson in their election campaign, which is bizarre to say the least, because now everybody will go, he's just a liar.
But you say that. You say that, but Johnson makes does the whole Gandalf and Shadowfax coming over the hill at the Battle of the Five Armies or whatever. Those of you who have Tolkien reference will know this and go, oh, it's the he's back. He's here to say.
I read after first book.
All right. Anyway, but. With the backing of, listen, the Express, the Mail, the Telegraph, whatever, they can say, look, they're talking about, I'm looking at the front of the Independent this morning, Sinead Grady saying Penny Mordaunt for Prime Minister. Why not? She may be the panicking Tories' only hope for avoiding total wipeout. And let us not forget the only real gravitas she is, Paul, apart from when you stand up and fight and the person next to you stands up and fight, the country stands. And the next thing you know, it's a bar in the east of London and who's having a punch up. Or
she can hold a sword up for hours.
And I'll go back to my Lord of the Rings analogy there. There you go. It's Penny Mordaunt,
Or is that...
It's Excalibur. It's the Lady of the Lake.
Lord of the Thrones or whatever they call it.
Game of Thrones. Or failing that, it is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And watery tarts slinging swords. There's no form for picking a government. I paraphrase, obviously.
Well, and that's another thing that everybody's doing. It's throw in the next thing. I don't believe that Penny Mordaunt or her followers put up this story about her being the next Prime Minister or that she was challenging Sunak. This is a media, press, right-wing Tories just creating that unrest under Sunak.
But why not throw your hat in the ring? Because look at...
she hasn't.
But look at...
Yeah, but no, you asked the question, I'll give you the answer.
Right.
You might not like the answer, but the answer is she hasn't thrown her hat in the ring. She's denied what's going on and said...
Oh, I couldn't possibly. No. If I must.
No. She said, I don't know nothing about this. It's none of my... supporters have all come out, the ones, I don't know how many they talk to. And when you listen to them on the television and you listen to Beth Rigby...
Listen, Beth, don't you have a go at Beth Rigby. She was brilliant with it. She got shut down by Lee Anderson the other day. Country, party, constituency.
Yeah. Well, when you hear them and all the other, what's her name, the guy who does Sunday Morning, Trevor Phillips, the woman who does whatever her name is, a long name, German name woman.
Lara Kosenberg, perhaps.
Yeah, her as well.
Yeah.
And you listen to them, and I do listen to them. They're all trying to drum up a story that doesn't exist because they've got nothing to talk about. There is, as I said, there's a fag paper between what the Tories are saying and what Labour is saying. So you've got an hour programme or hour and a half programme you've got to fill with, you've got to fill this vacuum. If they keep bringing in American spokespeople or talking about Gaza, it's a political show that designed effectively to talk about British politics, and they haven't got enough stories to fill it. I saw Trevor Phillips on Sunday just struggled. He had the Tory minister, whatever his name is, the minister for paper bags or whatever he is. He comes on.
The minister for paper bags.
Oh, he had nothing to say.
Right. Okay.
They get him.
Why would you want to be wheeled out again? Because every time, listen.
They put them up, don't they?
They put them up, but it's like they're sending them over the top.
No, every week, both Labour, the Lib Dems do it as well, but they don't get picked up as often. They get picked up for their electoral share, i.e. they have to have so many of them on, otherwise they get accused of bias.
Right.
But every week, Labour and the Tories put up a minister. They're the party spokesman for the weekend. They're not the only ones, but they are the main ones. So they wheel them out, and so, I don't know, let's say it's Gove. So you'll see Gove on Trevor Phillips, then you'll see Gove on the BBC woman, and then you'll see...
Laura Kusenberg.
Yeah, I'm never going to get the name right.
I know, I'm just letting that's only because I know it, and I actually know. And you,
oh,
so
right.
That's there,
you little name dropper, you.
I did, tell me about it.
I never knew Gove. Anyway, and I did know Trevor Phillips, and at one stage, for I was minuscule time, I was an agent for him as well when he stood for MEP.
Right.
That's name dropping. So they wheel them out, and they talk about any issue that's happened in the week. Yeah, it's the transport minister they wheel out, and they talk to him about the Israeli policy in Gaza. And you go, with the best will in the world, I know they're intelligent, I know they've had a briefing, I know they've had lots of writing, but they're not going to be the expert on Gaza and the issues of Gaza and the issues of the Middle East. They're not going to be that. They're the Minister for Transport because that's their forte. They understand transport. And I know they do the tour, but, you know, I tell you, they wheel out who is really, really, you know, understands it, is Cameron. That's because he was the Prime Minister. Anybody who's been the Prime Minister for any length of time will have, at their fingertips, you can almost say, the historical knowledge that they've built up is just unbelievable. So they can talk about most things that are on the go. But Cameron doesn't come on and talk about HS2. He comes on and talks about foreign policy because he's the Foreign Secretary. And every time they try to, while you're on, can you tell us what your views are about Morden being the next leader? And he goes, the issue in Gaza is this. Yeah, they're so good at sidelining them because they've got the intelligence and the knowledge to be able to do it. You wheel out the Transport Minister and all he can say is, it's not my department, I don't deal with that.
The government has my full backing.
Yeah. How we've got a plan. He said about 40
they have
times.
To say that, but that's the new buzzword. We've got a plan. Labour doesn't have a plan.
Yeah.
But it was wrong. It was wrong. This is the other thing. It was wrong.
Yeah, but in the main, it is we've got a plan.
We've got a plan,
and we've got to stick to it.
It's a cunning plan.
And you go, no, yeah. Well, I hope it is.
so cunning that people like ourselves. We'll be back with more cunning plans after this break.
Viewpoint with Giles Brown.
Always live, always lively, joined in the studio by Alf Brew. If you want to get involved with today's show, get a viewpoint across. These are your numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And it's to the WhatsApps we go. According to some, the Mordaunt rumour started within number 10 to dissuade dissent. So there you go. So they're holding up. So don't get behind Penny Mordaunt because they're not.
Told you.
Told me what?
That Mordaunt had nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
she's being put up as the full person, so that they can do things like that. And the second thing, who's it? Ben, the geezer who used to be the Foreign Secretary.
Ben Wallace.
Yeah, he comes on and he goes, now it's time that you're going to face the guns. You go head on into the guns rather than trying to avoid. And you go,
what?
This is not the charge of the Light Brigade. It's a
surely a flanking
it's a general election.
Yeah.
And if you're one of those MPs that's in a vulnerable seat, technically, certainly the red wall seat, the ex-red wall seats. If you're one of those, the last thing you're going to do is, it's like, chickens voting or turkeys voting for Christmas. You're just not going to do it. You're going to say, if you're a level-headed, and I'll tell you what did it yesterday.
Right.
Yeah, they've got this big thing going on, haven't they? We haven't even spoken about it. I don't want to get involved in the Rwanda and immigration and all that, but they have this thing about Rwanda, and they go, the House of Lords put 10 amendments to the bill, and they all come back to the House of Commons, and they have this strange, archaic programme. This is about checks and balances, by the way. It's done for real purposes, but sometimes it's abused. So it gets to the House of Lords. The House of Lords, with a whopping 100 seat or 100 vote majority, put these 10 amendments in. It goes back to the House of Commons, and with a whopping 40 or 50 majority, the Tories bat them all out, and then they'll go back to the House of Lords. And the House of Lords have this difficulty about whether they can pick out some of the amendments and say, well, all right, we were wrong about the 10, but we want this one and we want that one. Or they may come up with something else that somebody's thought of. And the only thing that anybody spoke about was, if they just come back, this is the plotting of the anti-Tories and the anti-Rwanda plan, if they come back and put all 10 amendments back in and put them back to the House of Commons, they won't be able to debate it until after Easter, which will then delay a flight in the spring to Rwanda. And you go, I bet I know what they're plotting in the House of Lords. And then you go, yeah, but the difference is the Tories have got about a 200-seat majority in the House of Lords with the way it really works. And if you count that the church people, the bishops, will probably abstain. If you count that the opposition will split into their normal factions, if you take it that the crossbenchers will talk about getting things through Parliament and not blocking for the sake of blocking, and you put the Tory majority in there, then that's not going to happen. So this is when you see ambulances turning up at the House of Lords and people being wheeled out on stretchers so that they can vote, which I have personally seen. I've seen it while I was in Parliament. It was an MP in this case.
Right, these are members of the House of Lords going into... Yeah.
But this is the House of Lords, but I saw it with an MP, and it was a crucial vote, and I forget what the majority was, about 5 or something ridiculous. So you just wheel out everybody. So the Tories, I'm sure, now are planning, the next time it goes back to the Lords, they're not going to see 100 majority against them. They would have sorted out the Tory dissidents. Right. They would have done loads of stuff that says if you do that, you are in danger of endangering our at least half a chance of winning the next general election. So if you do, we'll blame you, and we'll blame you inside the Tory party, and we'll sort something out, which is what they will do. They're like the mafia, aren't they? All of them. So what they do,
that's a rather jaded view to have, surely, of our institutions.
When they went for the elections, after they changed the number of life peers, so there are still life peers, but they don't necessarily sit in the House of Lords. They have an elected body who represent them. I think, is it 100 life peers who can sit in Parliament? They still all don't turn up. There's an inbuilt majority for the Tories because it's an internal election, so it's Tories voting for Tories. But when they get their act together and they turn it out, those 100 people become active working peers, and they will go round to all their mates, in the Lords. They would do anything, and it will all be about, because if there isn't a Tory government, Tory peers are curtailed in what they can do. The one big thing that Tory peers have done for years is, you're my mate in business, I'll introduce you to this MP or to this junior minister or even the minister to talk about issues for your company. Or just come up to the House of Commons for tea. I can't tell you. And that thing on the terrace, blimey, until the Labour Party learned that the beer was cheap, the terrace used to be full of all these. You knew they were Tories, and they're Tories wanting dining and whatever. And that's how they get all their. That's how they do it in politics. I haven't seen many Labour. It took years. I remember when Labour got into government under Blair, and the first thing that people like, not me, but the organisation within the Labour Party, it took them about 3 months before they said, really what we ought to do is invite all the professional organisers. I was a professional organiser, not just a volunteer. But it took them ages to invite all the professional organisers just to visit Number 10, which is a big issue. They hadn't been in power for years, and all of a sudden you've got access to 10 Downing Street.
Yeah.
I mean, when you walk in the place, it's just an unbelievable place. But it took them months. They have no concept of... These people have worked their butts off for you to get you there. The least you can do is let them come in and look at all the portraits up the stairs and see how big the rooms are.
Yeah.
They're not little cupboards; they're bleeding great big rooms, halls. We walked into this room that held about 200 people. This is one room in 10 Downing Street,
Right.
And they undid the sliding doors in the middle. There was another room that held about 300 people. So you can have this room with about 500 or 600 people in it. Nobody ever sees that. Nobody can ever talk about that. So Labour are very not good at looking after people like that. But when you see the Tories do it, they're really clever at it. And perhaps I get a little bit jealous or sick about it. But nevertheless... Next issue, still with the elections, is I was hoping, because you told me that Jamie might have been able to be here, which is unfortunate, because I wanted to pick Jamie's brains about the Scottish elections.
Right. Well, maybe next time. But anyway.
Oh, it does. It's not that. It's because of the boundary changes.
Yeah.
Scotland have got lots of boundary changes. They're actually losing 2 constituencies. One of them's that unpronounceable one, EIEIO or something. It's the Western Isles.
Okay.
Knocky.
All right.
Knick Knack Knocky Doo, whatever they're called.
That's
the
famous.
Western
That's
Isles.
famous. Okay. Yeah. So fair enough.
Beyond the Isle of Skye.
Okay.
Anyway, I think they're disappearing. But what we never see, or what we never get a feel of, when you watch what's happening in Parliament, even if it's cursory, and you get the news stuff on the television, it's mainly all what we see is English news, a bit of Wales, a bit of Northern Ireland, but the only thing you see with Scotland is about the internal difficulties, the fights with the SNP.
Yeah.
And of course it's because they've got local elections coming up, so the SNP so you listen to them in Parliament, and Labour say you're overtaxing the Scottish people, we wouldn't do that, and the SNP are saying but you're doing this, and what you're seeing is this, and none of them are settling on the Tories. They don't give a toss about the Tories. How many seats the Tories got? 1 or 2 in Scotland, so they're not attacking them. So what you get is as much as the SNP complained that Westminster used to rule the roost over Scottish politics, what you see now is Scottish politics aired in Westminster. So you don't get proper debates. I have no idea. I understand there will always be the electoral stuff. You're not good on education. You're not good on NHS. You're not good. But we don't see any real... So then to try and say, how's the Labour Party going to do in Scotland? They've got to win, at least in my view, at least 20 seats in Scotland to have half a chance of forming a government. Half a chance. They need the 20 seats in Scotland just so that they can say, we represent the nation, we represent the United Kingdom. Because, Labour, I don't remember what they got, four seats? Something ridiculously low. It used to be all Labour, didn't it? And then the SNP come along, and all of a sudden, all the Labour people became nationalists, and all the Tories hated the Tories poking their nose into Scottish politics, and you end up with this massive body called the SNP wiping everybody out. I don't know. I would love to know if there's any Scottish listeners out there or people who understand, what is actually going on in Westminster terms in Scotland. 55 seats are up for grabs. What's the estimate for a shift in power? Because at the moment, I suppose it's because it's the local elections are taking all the news.
Yeah, and the other problem is the fact at the moment the Scottish National Party's got a problem with its internal politics. As we know, they've got the new leader, etc. But they've been, he's been in there for over a year now. That we Nicholas.
That's calmed down. What they'll suffer from is the fallout from the last leadership of the SNP, and how do you put that to bed? But we don't see. I mean, unless you're one of these boring people like I am occasionally, you watch the parliamentary channel and you can see the Scottish Parliament in its sessions, and you can see the Labour leader, and attacking the Tories the most vociferous or the most vicious, but they're all attacking the SNP, but there's no understanding of that's the Scottish Parliament. What effect is that having on Westminster seats in Scotland? Because you can't necessarily relate Scottish local politics with Scottish national politics. It's quite different. It's a bit like saying, Glasgow Council is run by Labour and will always be run by Labour, probably, but they've got an SNP MP. How does that work? Well, it's because the people trust the local people to do things in a certain way, but they don't trust the Labour Party to run them in Westminster because they won't give them a vote on independence or whatever. As I said, you can't tell people why they should do something. You can only ask them what their opinion is, and hope occasionally to influence their opinion. But if people say, I want independence, we must remember that at least 40%, I would guess now, 40% of the Scottish population want independence. Therefore, they're always going to vote the same way, just because it's independence.
Right, those bongos means we've come to the end of the first half of today's Viewpoint. We'll be back after national and international news.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain. Discuss, challenge, inform, comment, Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe.
Giles Brown.
Live comment and discussion with studio guests. Viewpoint.
And welcome back to the second half of Viewpoint with me, Giles Brown. If you want to get your viewpoint across, then these are the numbers you can contact us on.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
And those are indeed the numbers that you can get in touch with us and the way you can get in touch with us. On to this morning's Viewpoint. Just looking at some of the headlines at the moment. Top stories: Princess of Wales has been filmed smiling whilst out shopping with Prince William for the first time since her surgery. The couple was seen on Saturday at Windsor Farm Shop, close to their home. The Prime Minister says he's still aiming to get flights carrying asylum seekers to Rwanda taking off this spring. Last night, the government overturned all 10 amendments from the House of Lords to its Rwanda bill, but they could be added again on votes on Wednesday. The American military said it successfully destroyed anti-tank missiles, drones and weapons storage containers in Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. The US Central Command claims the equipment presented an imminent threat to commercial vessels and its own Navy ships in the region. The National Grid in the UK said it's nearly 60 billion pounds is needed to fully decarbonise the UK's electricity system by 2035. It says new cables will be needed to link wind farms with cities while demand for power will rise. And it seems that bond producers could have found their next 007. The Sun claims Aaron Taylor-Johnson has been offered the role, but hasn't yet accepted. Those are some of your main stories this morning. If you want to get involved with today's show, then these are the numbers.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Looking at some of the stuff we should be looking out for this week, looks to be dominated by wars in Ukraine and Gaza, with both conflicts on the agenda for the meeting of EU foreign ministers. Josep Borrell, the bloc's high representative, said he used some of his language to date last week to condemn the crisis in Gaza, accusing Israel of using starvation as a weapon of war. EU leaders meeting in Brussels for their usual two-day summit on Thursday are expected to call for an immediate humanitarian pause leading to a sustainable ceasefire. Meanwhile, in other news, Haiti's healthcare system is on the verge of collapse after the armed gang insurrection, a mass jailbreak that forced Prime Minister Ariel Henry to resign last week. Hospitals have been set ablaze, doctors murdered, and the most basic medical supplies have now dried up, leaving victims of the violence with little hope of medical attention. The situation is rapidly deteriorating, with the US scrabbling to evacuate its stranded citizens from the stricken Caribbean nation. Meanwhile, a timely summit for democracy kicked off yesterday in tech-savvy Seoul, South Korea, with US President Joe Biden accepted to attend virtually. The three-day event, the third of its kind after Biden established it in 2021, will focus on digital threats to democracy, including misinformation, artificial intelligence, and deep fakes. Some attendees have already accused Russia and China of conducting malicious propaganda campaigns. And finally, in this little bit, a rare ray of sunshine for the calendar. Tomorrow we celebrate International Day of Happiness. According to the 2024 World Happiness Report, Finland is still the happiest country, but the rest of us can take heart from this year's theme, Happier Together. At a time of increasing polarization and isolation, the most important thing we can do is find positive ways to overcome our divisions and connect more deeply with each other. This is what Dr. Mark Williams, director of non-profit movement Action for Happiness, said. So there you are. Are you feeling happy, Alf? There you go. That's your
I'll tell you what, though.
What?
Because of another programme that goes on here, we know why Finland's happy. Because they have all these strange sports.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes,
like
of course.
Wife carrying.
Wife carrying.
At least they don't do wing fencing.
At least they don't do wing fencing. Yes. So if you don't know what we're talking about, tune into Sports Kid on Saturday morning's Slice of Brown. But yes, indeed.
That's why they're happy.
That's why they're happy.
Yeah, absolutely. They spend all their time making up these bizarre...
And the vodka.
What was it? What was the last one? Diving off a cliff. Oh, belly flop.
That was death diving. that was something else. Anyway, let's let me go. Talking about happy. Here's a stat. There's one person who's going to be happy. Today's stat: 87%. Do you know what the 87% is?
87%. No.
Vladimir Putin.
Winning
his 87% of the vote after the 3-day election marred by widespread protests against the autocratic president. Although his victory was never in doubt, distorted election in which challenges were crushed, or even the dead may have voted for him.
And they never actually explained what the 87% was. 87% of what?
Yeah, the
people that voted. Only 10 people voted. So.
Well, they've marked it as the election being an historic low for post-Soviet Russia. I mean, there were 4 other candidates, all of them picked by the president.
Three strange people.
There was one called Sletny, which I thought was quite a good name.
It was the 3 technically opposition people to Putin who all was supporting what was going on in the Ukraine.
Exactly, and it weren't going to get but obviously the biggest. I mean, you look at the pictures coming out yesterday of Navalny's widow and situation, and you just think, 25 years ago, there we were thinking that maybe Russia was going to be saved by market forces. The fact they had a McDonald's in Red Square was seen as a triumph of NATO.
And then they let the wealthy people, the
oligarchs.
Well, you could call them oligarchs. I'll call them the mafia, because a lot of them were Belarusians. A lot of them were the old state Communist Party, as they called them, the party. I remember going, when I visited Moscow, I went to a telephone exchange, and this was in the days when America was selling them electronic. I mean, we'd never seen it in the UK. Well, not a lot of it. But they were selling them electronic exchanges, and they took us on this tour of the telephone exchange. And they took us, obviously, because it was a union delegation, they took us to the union office. So we went in the union office, which was okay. It's about the same size as my office back where I come from. And the guy said, "Would you like to see the party office?" So what's all that about? So the party had an office next to the union office. I said, you have to see it because you can then see all the listening devices.
Right.
Because they were still there. And I opened this door. Said, unfortunately, you can't go in there because they were still frightened of party people.
Yeah.
But it was more frightened of the mafia. So I opened this door, and the room hadn't been touched, so it had dust over it, and it still had these pad things on the wall, which were the listening devices on the wall into the union office. I mean, obviously none of them were working, but throughout all of that, now this is after Glasnost, remember? What's his name?
Gorbachev.
Yeltsin.
Yeah.
Yeltsin was there, so Putin hadn't come along. But the fear factor still in the place was unbelievable. And they wouldn't go anywhere near the party stuff for fear that the party would come back. But when you saw it, it's like, I don't know, anybody who's been to Moscow, you see the Western supermarket, you see the Western shops, the big shops. If you go into Red Square, they've got that massive, like a posh John Lewis's. You have massive shops, and the only people there, there's big Zil limos come along, pull up. Two women got out of the back of this car, walked to the shop door. The guy come out with a barrel full of stuff. They wheeled it to the car, put it in the boot, and off they zoomed. It was like two different lands in the same place. I know you can walk around Chelsea and see some posh stuff, or Harrods. Yeah. But this was just unbelievable. Everybody was poor. They were still doing beetroot, selling beetroot on the side of the road, and red cabbage outside the station. Has anything really changed from that? Has Putin? He must have done, because when you see the television pictures now, the Russians look a bit more affluent. But mainly because you only see them in Moscow.
I was going to say, I mean, Russia's a huge country, and and for I would imagine for most of the population, it's an autocratic state, and we know this, and most of the population are just getting on with it, and because Moscow is a very, very long way away from most of the people, and I imagine it's not much hasn't changed apart from their sons being conscripted or sent off into the meat grinder of Ukraine. Yeah.
And which is most of them are trying to avoid anyway, aren't they? How many people do they reckon now? Over 500,000 Russians have left Russia to avoid conscription. Well, they're hiding.
This is just coming through across my radar, because the UN's nuclear watchdog has demanded that Russia withdraw its forces from Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant 2 years after it captured the facility. Greenpeace described the occupied plant as a nuclear time bomb and accused Putin of threatening an unprecedented escalation if the Russian president ordered the reactors to be restarted. Ukraine is, of course, haunted by the legacy of Chernobyl, 86, and so the fears about Moscow's intentions are obviously pretty well grounded.
It's still a working power station, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Chernobyl. The other one, they've switched off.
It's on the Dnipro River.
It's Crimea.
And
they're not going to do anything to that. They want that, and they're going to preserve that, because eventually one day they will start up the reactors once they've all been tested, because they'll want it to provide power into Russia.
Yeah, but the problem is actually getting it out from where it is. You can generate as much power as you want, but they can't get it out.
Not if they've done the Donetsk, whatever it's called, Donetsk corridor, and they've got this free access from Russia down to the Crimea. Then they will be able to put their, restore the pipelines and the cables and everything else that goes with it. I'm not so sure. See, people often think, in Italy, for example, all of their electricity, their national grid is run on cables under the sea. So they go in a loop, so around the Adriatic, all the way around the bottom of it, all the way up the Mediterranean. Well, it's not easier, but it means they didn't have to dig up all their roads or whatever they have to do, and it's all put under the thing, which is why, remember the cruise liner that went aground or did where, and they were absolutely petrified that it was going to cut the electricity cable. It wasn't because the cruise liner had beached itself. It's because it was right near one of the electric. And they have this. It's one continuous cable, by the way, that just goes in and out of the shore, provided by a British company called. What's it called? BICC, British Insulated Calendars and Cables.
Right.
From Woolwich. Huge organisation was, but it was also laid by British Telecom cable ships, which was what was fascinating as well. So the whole contract for the Italian electricity network was British. And you go, wow, there was no question of security then. So Britain could switch off Italy's power, presumably quite easy. One issue that we sort of highlighted on but never got to, and it fascinated me, is Barack Obama.
I was just about to say that.
Barack Obama turns up at 10 Downing Street. The way they make it sound as if it was unannounced and he just walked in and knocked on the door, as if it was ever be unannounced. But the big question is so what was he doing there? And you have to speculate, what the hell was Barack Obama doing? And he didn't just visit number 10, he visited Sunak and he visited Keir Starmer. So, because they know there's a general election now coming up at some stage. And you go, was he sent as some sort of no official photographs of Obama with Sunak, none with him and Starmer. So it was this isn't a political visit. This isn't about your general election and America and all that, because that would have really hit. But people must put two and two together and come up with, was he there as some sort of an envoy for Biden? Leading up to the American elections, and he's just softening the ground or making the contact that says, we fully expect that Biden's got at least a 50% chance of getting re-elected. Well, it's only him or Trump, so it's got to be 50%.
Yeah.
Was he there to be like the envoy of, we'll talk to you when things progress a bit more? But I found it very strange, because when an ex-president turns up somewhere, normally it's a big issue. The only other thing I could think of is he was there talking to them about Gaza and Israel and what was happening in the Middle East.
Giving them sort of off-term briefing, because Biden had some words for Netanyahu this week. I mean, he said that certain places in Gaza were a red line, and it looks like Israel's going to go steaming over that red line now. And we're talking about ships going in, airdrops. You've got the UN saying they're weaponizing hunger. This is of course happening during Ramadan.
Well, they had a woman on Sky this morning, a humanitarian organisation, and they're now saying this isn't something that we talk about, but famine. When you start saying there's going to be a famine, it's not something that's going to happen in 6 months' time. It means that people are now dying of hunger in big numbers, and if you don't change it, there will be a famine. And there are only 2 countries in the world that have ever declared famine: Sudan and
Ethiopia.
Was it Ethiopia? It's certainly one of the Africans.
Yeah.
2 of the Africans. So they're the only 2 countries where they've ever declared a famine, and they're about to declare Gaza to be a famine place. That will mean, and when you see the pictures of the kids are skeletons. They're not all getting to this aid. The aid that's coming in is
being hijacked.
One, it's sporadic. Well, there was the bit about when the lorries were attacked, and they said, it's this, that, and the other, and they said a lot of that was the Palestinians getting in before Hamas hijacked the aid that was coming in on the lorries. And you go, that's because nobody's, even Israel ain't going to do it. There's no other country that's going to send troops in. But what's required for all of that aid, however it comes in, whether it's by air, by ship, by train, by lorry, it doesn't matter. You need people there to organise how it's distributed. The aid organisations, and especially since they've withdrawn all that funding from UNRWA, and the woman was talking about that, they're the biggest aid organisation in Gaza. No other international organisation or collective of international organisations can provide the service that UNRWA were providing. None. Which effectively means whatever aid you're sending in is going to the wrong place anyway, no doubt. And you're going to see people dying, not because there's no aid getting in, but because the aid isn't going to reach them. If they're in the middle, they're neither at the north or the south, the chances of an aid convoy ever getting there is going to be probably
without
never.
Having agencies on the ground, who's to say that stuff isn't going to get seconded, absconded, whatever, by the very organisation that Israel is trying to wipe out?
I understand that, and Hamas obviously are going to try to feed their fighters, and they're probably, they're doing it against to the detriment of the Palestinian people, etc., etc.
I don't care about the Palestinian people. That's blindingly obvious. They're a terrorist organisation.
Oh, absolutely, and they're going to feed. It's the same in any war. You feed your troops, and everybody else has to scrimmage. That's always been the case, because if you don't feed your troops, you've got no troops. So they're doing it, but it's because the Israelis are doing what they're doing. They're not policing anything in Gaza. They're just trying to wipe out Hamas. So there's no other organisation that's policing it, which means effectively whatever aid is going in there, it's either not going to the right place, or it won't reach some of the people, and the worst of it is the ones where you hear the stories. It comes in on a lorry in one gate, and it goes out over the fence somewhere else, and it gets sold back to some Israeli people who then flog it off to somebody else in the West Bank or where. It's all about people making money out of the inhumanity that's going on.
There was an Israeli strike. I don't know if it was an airstrike or a drone strike, which killed one of the high-ranking Hamas leader, Marwan Issa, over the past 24 hours. So, but again, you think to yourself,
was that in Gaza?
Yeah. You think to yourselves, because again, the majority of the high-ranking Hamas officers are living quite happily in the Gulf states. Some are in the Gulf states, aren't they? And you would think that they perhaps another way of doing it would have been got some Mossad just to take them out, like as they've done before, rather than this whole. Because Netanyahu is, Biden is Netanyahu is very, very quickly going to lose the support of the United States. Now, you've never had a US government who hasn't wholeheartedly backed what the Israelis are doing, and this is new territory. We had one of the major US congressmen last week saying that he'd known Benjamin Netanyahu for almost 30 years, and he was saying he wasn't fit for purpose to govern Israel at the moment.
Well, that's where it comes back to what I have said, and I always say, politicians are very good at defending their position, defending their status, and staying in power. And Netanyahu, he's just he's the epitome of it, because
even
he's
when
at the end
when it's costing, this is costing tens of thousands of lives. I mean, is that,
but not Israeli lives. So the Israelis don't care. They're just saying, get rid of this Hamas lot, stop all this nonsense. In fact, if you could push that lot into the sea, we'd be more than happy, and then we'll start on the West Bank and clear them out of there as well. That's where the Israelis. That's where they look like the moderate Israelis. They're so small in number, they get washed out in their parliament. They get washed out.
Number. I think this is problem as in always the
silent majority.
Exactly, the more right wing or the more vocal, as they are in politics anywhere. Well, so that's why you've got Lee Anderson and look at the whole situation with there, thinking that they've got huge support, or Braverman, and thinking they've got and Mark Francis' famous five families
since the last.
Well, exactly, but they think because they're shouting loudest doesn't mean that they represent somebody, and just because Netanyahu, or even flip it round, or the group of I'm going to get shot down in flames here. I think the Hasidics who were on the pro-Palestine marches and were being held up as the Jewish people saying, "Oh, this is wrong." It's a group that's been disavowed by many because they've been up there mischievous, but they're loud and they're shouting.
If you ever know, if you go to Stoke Newington, places like that, I mean, I had aunts and uncles who lived amongst all of them, the Hasidic Jews.
This is a particular.
It's the Hasidic Jews.
No, but it's a something within the Hasidic Jews. Yes, yeah,
and they're like their private army. So if you go to Stoke Newington, if there's any sort, you never see any usually civil unrest and that. That's where they've got all their schools, their private medical places, their care homes, or the organisation of their care. Jewish Care, which I think is the biggest Jewish care organisation in the UK. We've got their headquarters, just up the road from there. All of these all these people, and then what happens is that somewhere along the line, some Asian guy, an Arab, does something in the Middle East. And all of a sudden, all the school kids.
Here we go. This is the one.
All the school kids are frightened to go to school and things like that. So what the Hasidics have done is got like this private army, like vigilantes, who look after their kids.
What we're talking about is Nutrai Karta. This is the Orthodox group at all the pro-Palestinian protests. Still anti-Zionist, but far from beloved by other Jews. That's according to
some of them. Forward. But there is this other organisation who provide almost like safety cover for kids going to school and things like that. And they are part of the Jewish community. I don't say these things by accident. You only say these things because I happen to be the union official that used to cover Jewish care and the Jewish care homes. Their biggest care home is a village. I think it's Twyford, out in the sticks somewhere.
Apologies to all our listeners in Twyford who are listening out there in the sticks, quote unquote.
Twyford is out in the sticks. It's the end of the Elizabeth line.
Where does the sticks come from? Why are they called the sticks?
It's a forest.
It's a forest.
No sticks in London. They're in the streets.
Exactly.
And they're trees that live off of car exhaust fumes. Did you not know that?
No, I didn't know that.
The poplar trees that are in London were put there because they live off of the exhaust fumes. They don't water the trees in London. No, they never watered them. And they have all chestnut trees not watered because they live off pollution.
You're having something stronger in your tea this morning. Did you mean the trees live off pollution? Back after this break.
Viewpoint with
Giles Brown.
And we're back to the lines. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hello, it's Gil from Carl.
Morning, Gil.
The discussion that you had this morning about Gaza, I think, was quite good. A few inaccuracies.
We do try.
Yeah, a few inaccuracies about that. There are some groups of the Hasidics, they're a part of this Hasidic, that are against Israel and anti-Zionist because they found Israel as too much of a secular idea.
Yeah.
But it's, by the way, it's not Naturei Karta. Those are a group in Israel. The name means the guardian of the city in Aramaic. And they are against Israel and everything, but they are there. They're located.
There were just some photographs during the London marches of people claiming then to be Naturei Karta at the March for Palestine, which was in October last year.
And they claim to be Naturei Karta. I'm quite surprised about that because usually they are located in Israel and they don't go abroad. But there are other groups with a similar kind of idea. Yeah. For them, Israel is just too secular, and they were against the Zionist movement when it started 150 years ago, whatever. Another thing that was said, which is quite true, most Israelis want to get rid of Hamas, not just because of 7th of October, but because of about 15 years of rockets going all over Israel, although they don't do much damage. No country can allow such a thing. And if the price of getting rid of Hamas is exterminating the entire civilian population of Gaza, or 2 million of them, most people couldn't care less, to be honest. It's true. Yeah, I mean, there have been surveys to show that. And eventually they're going to go for the West Bank as well, and they won't starve them to death, but they'll move them by force to Jordan. To me, it's quite clear, because all the other ideas of Palestinian state, I mean, that's already out of date. They've tried it many times, they've looked at it many times. It's not going to work. And by now, very, very few people.
What happens when we start seeing photographs though of starving Palestinian kids? Because that's coming next.
We already see it.
Yeah, and so what do we get? What do you think the international community is going to do?
It doesn't. What can they do?
Well, they're just going to sit by and I mean, do you think?
Yes, because what else? I mean, you tell me what possibility? What could they do? Pass a resolution in the United Nations? I don't know. There's nothing,
I believe, Gil, that this is just. I'm not an expert at this stuff, but I just listen and look at what's gone on in the past.
Yeah.
As what was happening in Sudan, if you recall, was a civil war.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until there was a famine.
Yeah.
So there were still lots of people dying from the civil war, dying from starvation.
Right. Yeah.
But it wasn't until they declared a famine that they then sent in peacekeeping forces.
Yeah.
Now, there's no way that the Blue Hats of the United Nations are going to be sent into Gaza because they've got no right to be sent in there.
Exactly.
But if they can't declare it as a famine area, I think there would be enough international pressure that the United Nations, with Israel as part of it, remember, they're not separate from the United Nations.
That's right.
I think that they would have to allow the Blue Hats to go in to provide a peacekeeping force, which would kill off what Netanyahu's doing. It would allow Hamas to regrow. It would allow all this nonsense to go on, and in another 10 years' time, we'll be sitting here saying exactly the same as we are now.
Okay, well, I don't know if you know the rules about the United Nations. What are the rules in order to send the Blue Caps? The rules, they only send them with the permission of the countries that where they're going to be
deployed,
deployed. Only with the permission. If the countries involved do not allow them, they don't go in. I mean, those are the rules.
Yes,
I didn't make them up. Yeah.
No, that's because it's the United Nations and the countries where they send them, wherever they've gone in the world, the countries are part of the United Nations.
Yes, but only with the permission of the host country.
Yes, but they are part of the United Nations. So if they're part of a vote that's going on in the United Nations, they are part of the solution. They don't have votes, by the way, in the United Nations to send in the Blue Hats. The Blue Hats are sent in because the United Nations offer foreign forces, and then the host country says, yes, we'll allow them into our country. You're quite right. You can't just go and wander in there. But if you listen carefully to what I said, if there is a famine declared, then it could be enough international pressure is put onto Israel to say you will allow the blue helmets in.
Okay. How can they pressure? I mean, I've never heard of any case where there's been pressure to allow the blue hats in.
Bosnia.
Got some more calls.
Bosnia.
Got some more calls coming in. If you're okay, but good to hear from you as always. 952 784 4000 is the phone number. Morning, caller. You're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please? Hello, caller. You're live on TRE. Okay, not getting enough of that one. Let's try this one. Good morning, caller. You're live. No, and that one's gone. That one's gone as well. Right, both callers who are trying to get in there.
No,
please
don't say that. Your Welsh grandmother never said that.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Please try calling in again. Gonna hit a quick break and then back with more Viewpoint.
Viewpoint on Talk Radio Europe with Giles Brown.
Into the last 18 minutes, we're back, we're live, we go live to the phones. Morning, caller, you're live on TRE. What's your name? Where are you calling from? What's your viewpoint, please?
Hello, Giles, it's Jason. How are you?
Jason.
Okay?
Good to have you with us.
Yeah, likewise. So the problem is not Israel per se. Many people in Israel are also appalled at what Israel are doing. The problem is much greater. A few people have the ability now to free think or stand above the argument on a much higher level, on a much more humanitarian level. The problem is that when the world looks the other way, and does nothing, they're just as complicit as the person pulling the trigger. And that is true of what is happening, whether this genocide that's going on, and I'm talking now, it's words, you're talking, but nobody really does anything, do they? All we do is talk. And people just accept this as the new normal. And people are bombarded by media, become desensitized, soldiers dying in the droves in Ukrainian side, Russian side, and the world just lets this go on in one big corrupt morality, because that's what the world is. It's a corrupt morality, selective memory. And what we do is we console ourselves that we do the right thing. We've got all this bloody wokeness going on and all this new way of thinking. Now we think. But really, it's all an illusion of morality, because morality is not letting people die. And we get upset about things like the photographs of the, is it Meghan Markle, or the elections of Trump and these 5 police that die. But on the other side, we find ourselves having a scale of morality. It's okay to kill so many people so far away, but on your doorstep, oh, you can't do that. The problem is the whole world has lost its way in the way it thinks. The politicians have gone crazy. The way the world is managed, the way we conduct our affairs as a civilization, as species, is all going wrong. And people can't see this because they're too close to the problem, right? That is the problem. The problem is endemic, and it's in our civilization. Our civilization is collapsing, as I've stated many times, and everybody laughs. But that is exactly what is happening now on so many different levels, Giles, and I'll leave it there.
Jason, before you go, did you ever serve as a blue helmet? I know you was in the United Nations. You was in the armed forces, weren't you?
Yeah, the United Nations. Look what happened in Rwanda. No.
I'm asking, did you ever serve as part of a United Nations peacekeeping force?
No.
Right.
United Nations. Listen, the United Nations, in my opinion, at the moment is not fit for purpose, because there's a lot of people talking about many things and doing very little on this world, not just climate issues.
I just wanted, there was a guy
No, I didn't.
There was another guy that I know who was in the armed forces, and he was put into one of the detachments when the Bosnia-Serbia stuff was going on, and what I could never understand is he said him and his troop, or whatever they call them, his platoon, they were out doing patrol somewhere near a forest, and they came under fire from a bunch of whoever they were, Serbians or Bosnians, and they were allowed to fire back, obviously to defend themselves.
Fire control orders,
yeah, and then after that had all that skirmish had all gone and nobody was hurt, and they all march off again, and then they saw the same people in a village, and they'd gone into this village and they were holding the population almost hostage, and they were beating crap out of them, and they weren't allowed to stop it. The blue helmets were not allowed to stop it. No. And I thought, I'm not sure what it means by a peacekeeping force. So when Giles says, it's with the permission of yes, it is. But they're also really restricted about what they can do and what they can't do, what they can say, where they can go. Yeah. And I just wondered, from your experience, whether you've seen the same. But obviously...
Not on that side of things, no. Not on that side of things. Mm-hmm. But what I do think... with respect, is that the problems in the world are always better solved around a table.
Oh, absolutely.
On a battlefield. Once we allow a world to deteriorate as it is around us, and we rely on the soldiers, who are actually more noble than the politicians who are only doing a job. Yeah. It's the people that stand at a distance behind a safe desk drinking brandies, right, that don't share the same risk.
And what's even worse, Jason, is it's not even the politicians. It's the civil service, it's the diplomats, it's the people who have no part in any of that. So the misquote was, I don't know, a few weeks back somebody said, Churchill said, war, not George Orwell. It's not, it's Chamberlain, and it was about Hitler. And if you're a believer in that, which he was, a pacifist, well, sort of a pacifist, George Orwell, not war. Like you've just said, there's nothing better than sitting round a table and talking it through. Well, the problem is you've got to get them round the table.
Well, you put a politician on a battlefield for a day, and then see if the politician is more empathetic. Because every day that we talk on this programme about Ukraine, or all these problems that are going on, in the interim period, there are more soldiers dying every day. My point is, when is enough? When do people, even the most hardened, toughest people, say, this ain't working, right? You've isolated Putin, right? We've got this nutcase in Israel behaving in the same way as what Hitler did to the Jews in Germany. When does anybody decide it's absolute insanity and whatever we're doing ain't working? So the way to solve a problem is through communication. You don't do that by isolating people. You bring everybody around the table and you find a solution so the soldiers don't have to die, right? And the civilians don't have to die. It's common sense, isn't it? What we're doing, we've got it all absolutely wrong.
And collectively,
and the civilization is falling down.
But collectively, that's called diplomacy, Jason. That's the
diplomacy.
But
diplomacy is just a word. Unless
no. Diplomacy is a style. It's done by certain people. You cannot have a parliamentarian, any sort of political person cannot be a diplomat. They can go as part of a diplomatic team because they'll have their say, but diplomats are people who can stand aside from. They're the people who, what they call it's like being in the helicopter. They hover above and they look at everything that's going on the ground, and then they try to find solutions for what's going on the ground.
But have you ever met many? I've not known many
diplomats.
Not true ones. Not true ones.
Yeah.
Paddy Ashdown was a good.
No. Paddy Ashdown was not a diplomat. Paddy Ashdown was a politician. The diplomats are the ones. They're the ones that you very rarely hear of. They're the Secretary of State for somewhere in America is a political person.
Do nothing. That's my point.
No. They bring together. Their job is to bring together the people who will sit round the table and talk issues through. That's what
Are they on
diplomats
holiday
do.
at the moment? What are they doing? Because they're evidently not on the world stage.
No, because they can't. Listen, you must have seen the television, and they just had Netanyahu with his cabinet. Yeah, you might as well call it a war cabinet, because there's no way that those people sitting around that table are ever going to say, "Oh yeah, we'll join another." We'll send a couple of people off to wherever they've sent them off to, Qatar or somewhere, to be part of talks that are going on. They are the people, those however many they've sent, they're the people who will attempt to find a way through the conflict. But at the end of the day, if the politicians or the armed forces decide that we're not going to have a diplomatic solution to this.
Yeah, but the armed forces don't decide, they're the pawns of the politicians.
Yes.
And the problem is there's an impetus for war and division, and in this world there is no impetus.
Tell that
for
to
peace and
Myanmar.
humanity.
Tell that to the ruling army body in Myanmar. They're not politicians. They are an army. They are an armed force who are doing it by force. So it does happen around the world, Jason. It's just you can't put it off. You'll never get a diplomatic response in Myanmar while you've got.
But don't you feel when you look around the world now that we're in a more dangerous stage?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And,
Tinderbox.
It's not just the media explosion. The conflicts are so wide and diverse, and the division is growing.
It's a tinderbox.
In immigration terms and everything else, that we are heading in a really dangerous direction. That if we, as a species, not as a nation, as a species, cannot change the way that we behave, we're going to end up in a really, really bad situation.
Well, I actually believe if Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates hadn't have got involved in this, then Hezbollah would have started on Israel from a different angle. All hell would have broken loose simply off the.
But everybody has their own political agenda and their own dimension.
Of course. So what keeps peace?
So how does that resolve problems?
No. What keeps peace in the rest of the Middle East? I mean, it's a tentative, very tentative peace that's going on at the moment in say Egypt, or in Morocco, or in Algeria, or in Sudan, or in all these places are sort of getting by without killing millions of people, and it's a tinderbox at any one of those. Pardon?
Do you think you have to be a former soldier to value life and humanity? Because other people just don't seem to get it, and it makes me feel really, really sad inside when I look at how this world is conducting itself, and everybody is so brave from a distance, and is so gun-ho, right?
Yeah, and but, so many of us throw our hands up and say, what can we do?
What we do is we start to think of us as a species,
absolutely.
Instead of, there's no borders in space when you look down from the International Space Station.
Right.
And all the astronauts of every country that work together are in awe, and they see this really fragile, beautiful planet, what it is.
Yeah.
They can see it because they have the privilege of looking down on it. We can't see it because we're too close to the problem.
Yeah.
If everybody realised how vulnerable this planet is and how precious we all are, then somebody could maybe find a common ground, because we've all got red blood, right? And we all are mortal. And this is a problem that the world cannot really understand at the moment, what the really true picture is, because nobody can stand back from it, as what I'm saying now, and look at the overview of what's going on. I need to leave it there. I've got to go and cook my beans.
All right then, thanks very much for that.
It's been nice to speak to you.
And you, Jason. And you.
Okay, God bless.
Thanks very much indeed.
And Gil, by the way.
Yeah, and Gil, absolutely. 952 78 4000 is the phone number. Studio@tre.radio is the email. The Facebook page is Talk Radio Europe Official if you want to get involved with today's show.
To contact TRE, please call 952 78 4000. Email studio@tre.radio. Send us a WhatsApp on +34 645 99 67 95. Message us on Facebook, Talk Radio Europe Official, or tweet us at TRE Talk Radio.
Thank you very much for the aliens here. You can have Kate Middleton back. She keeps taking photographs and doctoring the images. Seriously, no self-respecting alien wants to be seen with bunny rabbit ears. Yes, indeed. Well, we have to have that. You know, we are all sides of the
absolutely
of the coin.
Everybody has a viewpoint.
Everybody's a viewpoint,
yeah.
And especially yes. Thank you to our intergalactic listeners from the galaxy of Andromeda. Always good to have you there, and your messages will be arriving in about 5 million years' time due to light speed.
How long does it take to get to Mars again?
Probably quicker than it takes to get to Malaga sometimes, but there you go.
Oh yeah. Traffic was awful.
Was it awful this morning?
Well, as usual, but that was just weight of traffic.
Into the last 3 minutes of this morning's Viewpoint. If you want to get your viewpoint across, 952 78 4000 is the phone number. Just and thank you, Julie, saying that also going back to a point about former President Barack Obama. He was in Belgium apparently a couple of days ago, and quote unquote, he was photographed with the Belgian Prime Minister. I wasn't sure that Belgium haven't Belgium been running without a Prime Minister quite successfully for like 40 years now?
Denmark, isn't it?
No, it's Belgium.
With no government.
No, it's Belgium. Definitely Belgium.
I don't know. I only know about their chocolate.
Well, indeed. Well, their moule. Something that Stephen Ritson, who's on next, will, of course, be picking up. If you're wondering what's coming up today, by the way, just to let you know, the show's coming through today on TRE Talk Radio, Your Voice in Spain. Following me is the aforementioned Mr. Ritson, and he will probably have a view on moule, as he does on most things. Oh, I've suddenly got this thing for frites. All right, then. Following me, Stephen Ritson, then following Stephen, of course, Selena is with us. She's talking to Lucy O'Brien about the story of Karen Carpenter. When the Carpenters first toured Japan, a journalist mistakenly referred to Karen as the lead sister. This designation stuck, and Karen liked it so much she had a custom-made T-shirt with the slogan on it. So talking about the Carpenters. And in the second half, Armand Beasley will be with us. We'll be with, at least with Selena, she'll be talking perfumes. What's your favourite fragrance? And Gil Capnet talking about King Charles III, a sumptuous celebration of the life of His Majesty. Following Selena is Hannah. She'll be chatting with Thierry in the afternoon, chatting to our resident trivia guru, Graham Donald. Then she's talking to the Queen of Crosswords, Anna Shetman, who publishes her first New York Times puzzle. And at 25 to 6, Hannah speaks to Sergei Madukov about life on the run. The Autumnist family shared the fate of millions of Ukrainians. 2 years later, he is able to convey the story through a clearer lens. But Belgian royal family, okay, not the Belgian Prime Minister, thank you. Howard Brereton joins us, of course, between 6 and 7 for Spain Today. And then there is a repeat of this show between 7 and 9. And we're almost out of time. I've just had remarks saying this has been the Alf Brewer. Would you like to nominate it for Show of the Year, the Alf Brewer Hour, or 2 hours? But thank you, because we're almost out of time. So thank you for your time today. Will we have a new Prime Minister by this time next week?
No.
Okay. I thought we might have to.
We won't have a new Prime Minister by this time. Is 6 months' time either.
Penny Mordaunt would have thrown her sword into the ring.
And worse than that, you never know. Next January, we might still have the same Prime Minister. That will be...
And that's a meme. Your face now is absolutely a meme. Right then. This show will be... Thank you for your time today, Alf. Always good to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
This show will be repeated at 7 o'clock this evening. Until then, have a great rest of your Tuesday. Stephen Ritson is up next.
Views expressed on Viewpoint by invited studio guests and callers do not constitute an opinion endorsed in any way by Talk Radio Europe.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this program, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels, and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit tre.radio.